Hey guys, and welcome to this introduction to QuickTools and Blender. I wanted to make a video that was really simple and just covered the core basic features that you need to know in all of our add-ons so that you can get started making concept art. And then if you want to know more details about all the other features, I already have videos on my channel covering all of that. So this is just a really basic beginner's way to get started. And what we're going to be covering is all the stuff that's in this basic cheat sheet. So these are all of the shortcuts that we're going to need for this video. Okay, so what I believe happens is people will install an add-on like QuickShape. They'll turn it on and they'll start drawing just kind of random shapes in 3D. And they'll go, yeah, it's cool that you can draw and all of a sudden it's a 3D object. But when you're in this 3D viewport, you're still drawing on a 2D screen, you're not in VR. It can be really confusing on how to actually make an object or a concept out of these just like random forms that you can draw that are kind of not always where you want them to be. So I think there's a better approach, and that is to ignore most of these settings, ignore the third quarter view, and just kind of treat this like it's a piece of paper or it's Photoshop, and QuickShape is your paintbrush. And so you're painting. You're not necessarily drawing because you are making large shapes. So we're just going to start really simple. So we're going to launch QuickShape by pressing Shift F. And now you're going to see the UI pop up. And to get started on drawing, you're going to left click and then move your mouse or whack them around. And that's going to draw a shape once you release it. And it's going to draw at the start of the 3D cursor. So what I mean by that is, let's say you go in the top view and you move your 3D cursor here. So you can see now the cursor is a little further away. So if we go back into that same side view and we click and we draw and we let go, now it's going to be there. So that's something to know about. If you change the view to something like this, then it's going to be right there. So let's reset the cursor to the origin. So as we covered this setting, now the length that this is kind of the size of this shape is this amount here that you can see in the lower left called depth. So if you want to make that bigger, you could press F, move your mouse, and then left click to confirm. So now it's going to be 3 times as big as it was. If you want to make it smaller, again F, move the mouse left and right. The next thing to do is hold Control. And when you hold Control, you'll see it's red, and that's going to subtract. If you hold Shift, it's going to cut. So this is a great way to make some cut lines or something. You can grab this shape and move it around. The last one is going to be Alt. So if you hold Alt down, what that's going to do is cut and then actually extrude outwards based on this depth. So if you wanted to make a small detail, you would move the depth to a really small number. Do something like this, and you get this nice little detail. Now, what I wanted to show you guys was getting this kind of process of getting started in side view and then move into 3/4. So what we can do here is grab a couple of things here and just do a cut like this. So now we've cut it off. And you'll find that using the 3D cursor is not really enough at that point if you wanted to draw a detail onto this this plane. So we have a solution for that that's really simple. You just press your, you move your mouse cursor over this face and you press W. And that's going to launch this work plane and align it. So if we then do a shape like that, it is going to draw on that work plane at this amount of depth. So let's try more depth. Let's do this work plane. Let's draw a cylinder here. And there it is. And now if at any point you want to lose the work plane and go back to drawing in the cursor mode, you just move your mouse cursor into the viewport, press W, and now you're back to drawing at the cursor. So those are just the really basic features, and now let's get into a more practical example. Alright, now using those extremely simple tools, just those couple of things, we're going to go into side view and we are going to paint with QuickShape. I'm just making some shapes into the form of some kind of spider mech from Ghost in the Shell. Just doing something really simple, and the key is to just not care about the topology. I'm not going into edit mode at any point. I'm just drawing and I'm just designing. I don't mind if things are overlapping or if they're connecting in a weird way. It's all about making sure that it looks good later when I add details, when I zoom out, when I add textures, when I add lighting. I'm not messing with the brush size really. I just draw it inside view and then move the camera and just scale it out. So you get all of these benefits of 3D where you can see it from multiple angles, you can scale it, you can rotate it, duplicate stuff around without ever going into edit mode. Or even, dealing with any of the polymodeling issues. So here I'm gonna use the quick deform mirror, and that's just Control X. And the only option that you need there is the 3D cursor or the object origin. You just make the choice, select the arrow. It's really simple to use. Now I'm just adjusting the design a little bit. So now we're gonna go to another view and keep cutting away. Here I decided to make a cylinder for the connection point there. Cut out something with Control. Here in front view, it's nice to make a cut like that, and then you get that 3D look to it, so that we need to remove the blockiness. And here you see I'm not worrying about extruding at all. I'm just drawing it and just mashing it in there, and it's fine. Yeah, I'm just adjusting the proportions a little bit. Doesn't look right, so I just fix that. See, now you get something that in 2 minutes is just a design sketch, and you can always keep refining. You can use the work plane, you can keep cutting away, you can sculpt on it if you wanted. It's really just about getting started in a creative way. And here I'm actually going in and work plane, just showing you a little example of how you could add a little detail like that. And to get this to a finished piece from this point, it's just a question of how much time do you want to spend on it. And you can make it more and more detailed by just drawing smaller and smaller shapes. And that's what I did with this APC example. I just used a lot of that, like adding little details, aligning on work plane, doing the cuts, adding a few more cuts here, getting into here. These rims are just using the Alt option and just extruding in. Really simple stuff. This is just a box that I drew on top and then moved it in. But when you get kind of farther away, you add some textures, some lighting. It starts to look like a concept painting, and it's not a finished model. It's not game ready by any means, but it is useful for what we do as concept artists. It doesn't need to be a game model. Now, although QuickTools is definitely more oriented toward environments, I did want to talk about characters and how you can end up making something really simple and the unique advantages that offers as opposed to using a 3D scan. So you can get something like this that's really obviously very simple, but because it's so simple, it's a little easier to add motion to it and to pose it in a way where you obviously don't have to rig it. You can just quickly make it, and you can edit the proportions, and there's really no concern about making things look unrealistic because it already needs paint on top of it, right? So you don't have that question of like, how do I make stuff look painterly? How do I make the character fit in? Because you already know that you need to paint this character. And this is just something that I enjoy. There's no real right answer here. Using a 3D scan sometimes is a great idea, but I just wanted to point it out that you can use QuickShape and QuickCurve for characters as well, and little props and stuff. And it's not just vehicles, it's definitely not just environments, although most of the time I am making environments with it. It's a very versatile tool, and it just depends on how you want to use it and how you want to paint on top of it. So we talked about QuickShape and how that's kind of like painting. Let's talk about QuickCurve, which is actually kind of like drawing. And I know that you can draw with curves in Blender, but it's really annoying to change the size or change the profile. So in QuickCurve, if you press Control F, you have the same controls where you press F and move the mouse and you can change the size. So now when you draw, go do this, and it's really annoying in Blender to have to draw and then change the size, whereas here you can do it in a much more natural way, where you can choose the size first, do a bunch of your drawings, and switch sizes and do another. So what I like to use this for is the initial blockout. So let's say I was not the initial blockout, the initial sketch. So let's say that I was trying to draw some kind of spaceship. This is kind of like some kind of jet. And then I can go into top view and design it. Maybe do something like this here. There's like a kind of a more realistic jet looking thing. And you have the same tools. You can select it, Control X, mirror it over, and you've got something. So Quick Curve really makes sense as a just pure drawing tool. Like truly it is just a pencil. You can go ahead and fill stuff here and use a larger brush if you want to cover a bigger area. And then obviously, as opposed to doing that, you can also go ahead, let me undo that, use QuickShape and start blocking stuff out now that you have a blueprint to work off of. So it's a very 2D, very painterly approach. And another nice thing that you can do is you can erase. So all you would have to do is just hold Control, and you have a little eraser. So let's redo maybe something like that. Let's totally change this design here. Maybe now it's like one of those wipeout vehicles, where it's like this, and then it's got like some kind of engine. Move this here. Then mirror it. So I don't know, maybe it's something like that. But you can experiment really quickly like this, and then of course you still have your 3D tools. So maybe it's like that. That's kind of cool. Let me show you some other examples of some things that I've made before. Some vehicles right here. So these I started with, as you can see, this one is pretty much all Quick Curve. Here I used a little bit of both. In this case, maybe pretty much all QuickShape. All QuickShape. Actually, a little bit of Quick Curve for details here. So I like Quick Curve a lot for the initial sketch, and then also for just adding a bunch of little detailed noise like this. And then you can refine it, which is what I did here on this one. Refine it. I like this one a lot, actually. Let me just show this one. See, you have a little bit of visual, just kind of noise that looks like detail when you zoom out, add textures, add lighting, and that's what we're here to do. So that Quick Curve and QuickShape combo is a really freeing way to work in 3D. So far we talked a lot about building something from the side and then expanding it into 3D, but a lot of times there's cylindrical shapes and you don't want to do this process of extrude, scale, extrude, scale. You want something more artistic. So that is where the revolve tool comes in. Let me open a new file. So when you're in Quick Curve, all you do is press Control D to activate the pie menu, and don't worry about this. If you want to know more details about all of these things, again, just check out the channel for our other tutorials. But for now, we just turn on Z right there under Revolve. And then as we draw, we can just create this type of 3D cylindrical shape. And that is very useful in a lot of cases. So before we finish it up with the quick texture examples, I wanted to go into the Lattice tool of QuickToForm. This is such a powerful feature that I think it's very underused because it's just annoying to have to make your own lattice every time. So having it in an add-on makes a lot of sense. So let's say you have a kit bash piece. In this case, this is just something that I made with QuickCurve using the tools that we discussed earlier. But if this was some kind of kit bash asset, the thing is that everyone has access to these same assets, and we want to be able to use those assets to save us time, but then to be able to fit it into our design, our vision of the concept, and not just always have to, Lego pieces together. So Lattice is a great way to do that. So all you do is select an object, press Ctrl-Shift-X, and you'll have this lattice pop up. Now you can use the middle mouse wheels to scroll up and down to add divisions, but I think since we're trying to avoid a lot of hotkeys in this tutorial, the other way to do it is to go into the end panel, quick deform, and just set this to whatever you want to set it. So let's just do 666. That's a bad number. Let's do 888. Select it and then Ctrl-Shift-X. Now we've got a ton of settings here, or a ton of points, but we can grab them and just kind of manipulate them in a pretty interesting way to create a completely new design. And you have access to all the usual, Blender stuff, so we're scaling, we're rotating, whatever we need to do. Sure, let's rotate. Kind of looks cool. And then you just press Control-Enter, and you've got a totally new design, even though we started from something and we didn't really do any modeling effort. It was, obviously, as you saw, it's extremely simple to do. And you can do this for any number of assets, just to create something a little bit different. Maybe even like, this is like a destroyed village, let's say. So we can add some damage to this. Like that. It's kind of cool. And it's just Control-Shift-X, one button, and everything's done for you. Okay, so quick texture. Let's select this piece, which is going to be wood. Control-T. Go to our Megascans folder, load in some textures, press Enter, and it will load all the maps up in a PBR way, connect everything. And now you're in this mode where you don't have to mess with any nodes. You can just press S, move your mouse, and scale. You can press G and move the texture. You can press V, adjust the color. So this is really great, and there's some downsides to working this way with Megascans texture specifically. Really just any CG texture in general, and you can't see it on this wood. So let me add this some thatch to this roof. So let's just choose this. Okay, so here you can start to see it. When you get into using any type of texture that's made for CG, you run into this problem. Like, it looks great when you zoom in. This is amazing. When you zoom out, it's so uniform and mundane, and it requires so much effort in the paint over phase that it kind of sucks. And the solution for it in quick texture, like the more complicated way, is to just make another layer and blend between multiple textures. So what that looks like is, let's press Control B, that makes another layer. Let's choose this white thatch. Let's just leave it like that, it doesn't matter. But you can see, so if you press Q, that's the first layer, W is the second layer. And let's actually adjust the value, that's the only thing. It's way too light. Okay, so Q, W, those are our two layers. Now you can press Control M, and that's going to mask by texture. So let's choose some noise map. Let's go with that. Let's scale it up. Let's add some more contrast. Press 1 to get back to the final result. Spend a little bit more time getting the settings right, adding another second layer to the wood piece on the bottom with a mask. So you can get some really nice results, and for concept pieces, when you kind of zoom back out, you get that variety. That's just all you need. You just need to break up that uniformity of any type of Megascans or singular texture. You start combining two, you blend them with a mask, you adjust the color. It's all really fast. You're not going into any nodes, and that is a great way to work. It's what I've been doing. I can't even imagine going back. Okay, so with photo modeling, I again just want to cover the super simple basics, how to get started in 2 minutes. So you can take a photo like this, that's obviously very flat, and just get something like this, cast a shadow, and it looks quite nice. So let me go over to Eevee. So all I have to do is press Control T with nothing selected, and then you can bring up your photo modeling reference, isolate it. Now this is a piece of geometry that kind of has the texture projecting on it, as you can see. So all you do is Shift F, your QuickShape. You can set your depth to 0, and you can start. So do something like this. Let's say cut it out by holding Shift, and now we've got a door. We can extrude that door. We take this, we can extrude that, we can extrude that, and we've got the start of photo modeling. You just take your time and you can do it. If you want to lock it so that you don't do this anymore, just visual geometry to mesh, and you're done. And thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. Next year we have new features coming and some more advanced videos I'll make that I can do like 30-40 minutes on one specific technique, and make some concepts, some scenes, some designs with QuickShape, QuickCurve, and all the other tools. Okay, thanks guys, peace.